The shadow market wasn't like any place you'd find on civilized worlds. Hidden deep in an abandoned asteroid field, it existed in the space between spaces, where the galaxy's most feared killers came to bid on contracts that governments wouldn't dare touch. The station itself was a patchwork of salvaged ship parts and stolen technology, floating in the darkness like a metallic tumor against the stars. Tyler Brooks had been coming here for over a decade. His species, the Razor-class hunters, were born killers with reflexes faster than most beings could think and claws that could slice through battle armor like paper. In his years of hunting, Tyler had never failed a contract, never even come close to failing one. That perfect record had made him wealthy beyond measure and feared throughout the outer systems. But today was different. Today, Tyler stood before the holographic bounty board feeling something he hadn't experienced in years. Genuine uncertainty. The contract floating before him was unlike anything he'd ever seen. 15 million galactic credits for the elimination of a single target. That was more money than some planetary governments had in their entire treasuries. It was the kind of payout that should have had every assassin in the market fighting for the right to take it. Instead, the auction hall had gone dead quiet. Tyler looked around at faces he recognized. Killers who had toppled kingdoms, hunters who had eliminated entire bloodlines, assassins who laughed at impossible odds. Every single one of them was backing away from the contract display like it carried some kind of plague. The target was listed as Ambassador Jessica Mitchell, a human diplomat stationed on New Geneva Trading Hub. Human. That single word seemed to hang in the recycled air like a curse. Tyler had heard whispers about humans over the past year. Strange stories that didn't make sense. Tales of hunters who had gone after human targets and never returned. Reports of assassination attempts that had somehow turned into disasters for the assassins themselves. He pulled up the contract details on his personal display, and what he saw made his hunting instincts scream warnings. This wasn't the first human contract posted on the shadow market. It wasn't even the 10th. According to the archive, this was the 20th human elimination contract posted in the past standard year. Every previous contract had been accepted by competent, experienced killers, and every single one of those killers had vanished completely, not killed in action. That would leave bodies, evidence, some kind of trace. These assassins had simply disappeared, as if they had never existed. Their ships were never found. Their contacts never heard from them again. They had walked into the void chasing human targets and never walked back out. The few surviving reports Tyler could access painted a picture that challenged everything he thought he knew about hunting. Surveillance logs spoke of prey that somehow always knew they were being watched. Security footage showed human targets who seemed to anticipate assassination attempts before they happened. Most disturbing were the psychological evaluation files that described humans as a species that had evolved on what the galactic community classified as a death world. A planet so dangerous that everything on it was actively trying to kill everything else. According to files, humans had spent millions of years fighting for survival against predators, diseases, weather, and each other. They had developed something the reports called predator awareness, an almost supernatural ability to sense danger. More troubling still were the tactical analyses that suggested humans didn't just survive assassination attempts. They seemed to enjoy them. Tyler watched as another assassin, a void stalker named Kevin who had never met a contract he wouldn't take, actually took several steps backward from the bounty board. Kevin caught Tyler's eye and shook his head slowly, making a gesture across his throat that meant death wish in assassin sign language. But 15 million credits was 15 million credits. And Tyler's species didn't just have pride. They had a genetic compulsion never to back down from a hunt once they had seen their prey. The Razor class had never failed a contract in 3,000 years of galactic history. That reputation was worth more than money. It was worth more than safety. Tyler reached out and accepted the contract, his biometric scan locking him into the hunt. Around him, the remaining assassins began filing out of the auction hall, many of them giving him looks that ranged from pity to horror. One veteran killer, an old friend named Brett, paused beside him. "You know what you're doing?" Brett asked quietly. Tyler stared at the target image. A seemingly ordinary human female with brown hair and kind eyes. She looked harmless, soft, easy, taking the biggest payout in shadow market history. Tyler replied, "Brett, was quiet for a long moment. Then he placed a hand on Tyler's shoulder. "Just remember, if the other 19 couldn't do it, maybe there's a reason." As Brett walked away, Tyler stood alone before the contract display, committed to a hunt that every instinct told him was somehow different from any he had undertaken before. Tyler knew better than to go into any hunt blind. His first stop after accepting the contract was the data archives on Kepler Station, a neutral information hub where credits could buy access to files that most governments prefer to keep buried. He'd used these archives before to research previous targets, but nothing had prepared him for what he found about humans. The surface-level files were almost laughably simple. Humans had appeared on the galactic scene barely 50 years ago, emerging from a small blue planet in an unremarkable solar system. According to the official records, they were a young species that had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. The diplomatic files described them as eager to join galactic civilization, friendly and cooperative in most dealings. They seemed harmless enough. Bipedal mammals with no natural weapons, no armor plating, no enhanced strength or speed compared to other species. But Tyler had learned long ago that the public files rarely told the whole story. Using his considerable resources and underground contacts, he began accessing the classified databases that governments and corporations try to keep hidden from public view. What he found there made him question everything he thought he knew about hunting. The first restricted file he opened was a military intelligence report from the Centauri Defense Force. It described a human trade delegation that had been attacked by pirates in the Vega system. According to standard procedure, the humans should have surrendered immediately or been slaughtered. Instead, the report described how the human diplomats had somehow turned their civilian transport into a weapon, using improvised explosives and jury-rig systems to not only fight off the pirates, but to capture 3 of their ships intact. The surviving pirate captain, a veteran raider named Jake Morrison, had been interviewed after his capture. His testimony was disturbing. He claimed the humans had known about the ambush before it happened, had somehow prepared for it, and had fought like beings possessed. Most unsettling of all, he swore that the human ambassador, a woman named Claire Walsh, had actually been smiling during the firefight. Tyler moved deeper into classified files, finding report after report of similar incidents. A human mining survey team had been attacked by a pack of void predators on Titan Prime. Instead of fleeing, they had systematically hunted down and killed every single predator, then used their remains to create better tools. A human research station had been invaded by a group of slavers looking for easy prey. The slavers had been found days later, tied up and delivered to the local authorities with detailed evidence of all their previous crimes. The pattern was always the same. Humans didn't just survive attacks, they turned them into opportunities. They seemed to have an almost supernatural ability to sense danger before it arrived, and more disturbing still, they appeared to genuinely enjoy facing that danger. The psychological profiles were even more troubling. Tyler accessed a xenobiology report that analyzed human evolution, and what he read there shook him to his core. Earth, the human homeworld, wasn't just dangerous. It was what galactic scientists classified as a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile that most species would have gone extinct within a generation of evolving there. According to the report, humans had spent millions of years fighting for survival against predators that made void stalkers look gentle. They had evolved alongside creatures that could kill with venom, crush bones with their jaws, or hunt in coordinated packs. The planet itself had tried to kill them with ice ages, volcanic eruptions, massive storms, and diseases that could wipe out entire populations. But instead of making humans weak or fearful, this constant threat had shaped them into something unique in the galaxy. They had developed what the report called threat assessment protocols, an unconscious ability to identify and respond to danger faster than most computers could process information. They could sense when they were being watched, could detect lies and deception, could identify escape routes and weapons in any environment within seconds of entering it. More disturbing still, the psychological analysis suggested that humans had developed something called stress addiction. Because their brains had evolved to function under constant life-threatening pressure, many humans actually became uncomfortable in safe environments. They sought out danger, challenge, and conflict not because they were suicidal, but because that's when they functioned at their peak. Tyler found footage from security cameras showing human diplomats, in what should have been casual social situations. But if you knew what to look for, you could see it: the way they positioned themselves near exits, how their eyes constantly scanned for threats, the subtle way they identified improvised weapons in their environment. These weren't soldiers or guards. These were supposed to be peaceful diplomats, and they moved like predators in every single frame. The final file Tyler accessed was a compilation of assassination attempt reports from the past year. Reading through them was like looking into a nightmare. Every single attempt had followed the same pattern. The assassin would begin surveillance, believing they were hunting prey. The human target would somehow detect the surveillance almost immediately, but instead of fleeing or calling for help, the humans would begin what the reports called counter-hunting behavior. They would lead their would-be killers into isolated areas. They would appear to make mistakes that created opportunities for attack. They would seem vulnerable and unaware, and then, when the assassin finally struck, the trap would spring. The hunter would become the hunted, and the human would reveal that they had been orchestrating the entire encounter from the very beginning. Tyler closed the files and sat back in his chair, his mind racing. The 15 million credit payout suddenly made perfect sense. It wasn't a bounty for killing a target. It was hazard pay for volunteering to become prey yourself. For the first time in his career, Tyler wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. Tyler's ship docked at New Geneva Station 3 days after he accepted the contract. The massive trading hub was perfect for his kind of work. Thousands of beings from dozens of species moved through its corridors daily, creating the kind of chaos that made surveillance and elimination much easier. The station operated under neutral territory laws, which meant no military presence and minimal security forces. It should have been an ideal hunting ground. His target was Ambassador Claire Mitchell, the human diplomatic representative stationed in the government sector. According to her official schedule, she maintained predictable routine that seemed almost too easy for a professional killer to exploit. Every morning at 0800 station time, she attended briefings in Conference Room C7. Afternoons were spent in diplomatic meetings with various trade representatives. And every evening at 1900 hours, she took a walk through the observation decks on level 15, usually alone. Tyler spent his first week conducting what he considered standard surveillance. He rented a small apartment in the residential sector under a false identity, positioned himself at strategic points throughout the station, and began mapping every detail of Mitchell's daily routine. He noted her security detail, surprisingly light for a diplomatic target, and identified the various routes she took between locations. From his observations, Ambassador Mitchell appeared to be exactly what the public files had described. She was a middle-aged human female, with brown hair and an unremarkable appearance. She dressed in standard diplomatic clothing, smiled frequently at passers-by, and seemed to genuinely enjoy her conversations with alien dignitaries. She appeared friendly, open, and completely unaware of any potential threats around her. What Tyler didn't notice was that Ambassador Mitchell had spotted him within the first 6 hours of his arrival on the station. Claire Mitchell had been a diplomat for over 15 years, but she hadn't started her career in peaceful negotiations. She'd spent her early 20s in Earth's Special Operations Division, hunting terrorists and criminal organizations in some of the most dangerous places in known space. She'd learned to spot surveillance the way most people learn to recognize faces, and Tyler's attempt at remaining invisible might as well have been fireworks going off in her peripheral vision. The way he positioned himself at the coffee shop with a clear view of the diplomatic offices. How he always seemed to be walking in the same direction she was, but never quite close enough to appear suspicious. The fact that he'd been wearing the same jacket for 3 days straight while trying to blend in with beings who changed their appearance regularly. To Claire, Tyler might as well have been carrying a sign that read, "Professional Killer Following You." But instead of reporting the surveillance to station security or requesting additional protection, Claire decided to do something that would have seemed insane to most diplomatic personnel. She decided to play along. On day 4 of Tyler's surveillance, Claire began making small changes to her routine. Nothing dramatic enough to seem like evasion, but subtle shifts that a skilled observer would notice. She started taking slightly different routes to her meetings, routes that happened to lead through less populated areas of the station. She began lingering in her office later, often leaving for her evening walks when fewer beings were in the corridors. Tyler noticed these changes and interpreted them exactly as Claire had hoped he would. He saw them as signs of complacency, evidence that his target was becoming careless with her security. When she started dismissing part of her protection detail for budget reasons, Tyler was certain that the human was making his job easier through simple arrogance. By the end of the second week, Tyler had identified what he believed was the perfect opportunity. Mitchell's evening walks had become increasingly isolated, often taking her to the far end of level 15 where the observation decks looked out into deep space. The area was beautiful but rarely visited during evening hours, creating the ideal environment for a quick, clean elimination. What Tyler failed to realize was that every single change in Mitchell's routine had been carefully calculated. The route she was taking led through areas where station security cameras had convenient blind spots, not to help her hide, but to ensure that what was about to happen wouldn't be recorded. The timing of her evening walks now coincided with shift changes in the maintenance crews, meaning fewer witnesses in the corridors. Most importantly, the isolated observation deck she was now favoring had something Tyler hadn't bothered to check: multiple exit points that appeared to be sealed maintenance hatches, but were actually functional airlocks that could be operated by someone with diplomatic access codes. Claire had spent her career dealing with beings who wanted her dead. Assassins, terrorists, military operatives, and political extremists had all taken their shot at eliminating her over the years. She'd learned that the best way to handle someone hunting you wasn't to run or hide. It was to make sure you controlled when and where the confrontation happened. Tyler continued his surveillance, convinced that he was closing in on his prey. He began planning the details of the kill, how he would approach, what weapons he would use, which escape route would be safest. He studied the timing of her walks down to minute and identified the exact spot on the observation deck where he would make his move. Meanwhile, Claire was making preparations of her own. She began carrying what appeared to be a standard diplomatic datapad, but which had been modified in ways that would have impressed military engineers. She started wearing a new piece of jewelry, a simple necklace that looked decorative but contained enough explosive material to breach a ship's hull. Most importantly, she sent a coded message to certain contacts, letting them know that she might need their particular skills in the very near future. By the beginning of the third week, both hunter and prey were ready. Tyler was confident that he had found the perfect moment to strike. Claire was equally confident that she had led her would-be killer exactly where she wanted him. Neither of them realized that this wasn't going to be a simple assassination attempt. It was about to become something much more dangerous, a test of which species was truly the apex predator in this corner of the galaxy. Tyler made his move on a Tuesday evening, exactly 3 weeks after arriving at New Geneva Station. He had timed everything perfectly. Ambassador Claire Mitchell was taking her usual walk to the observation deck on level 15, and the corridors were as empty as they ever got during the evening shift change. He'd spent days memorizing every detail of this moment: her walking speed, the exact path she took, even the way she paused at the large viewport to look out at the stars. He followed her at a distance, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to move with perfect silence. The plasma blade in his hand was set to maximum power, capable of cutting through battle armor or station bulkheads with equal ease. This would be quick, clean, and professional. One precise strike, and 15 million credits would be his. Mitchell stopped at her usual spot near the large observation window, apparently lost in thought as she gazed out into deep space. Tyler approached from behind, raising his weapon for the killing blow. His blade sliced through the air with deadly precision, finding its target exactly where he had aimed. The plasma cut through Mitchell's neck cleanly, and her body collapsed to the deck. But instead of blood, there was only the shimmer of disrupted light as the holographic projection flickered and died. Tyler stared at the empty space where his target had been, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. The hologram had been perfect, not just a visual trick, but something that had seemed solid, had cast shadows, had even appeared to breathe naturally. You know, most assassins at least check to make sure their target is real before they strike. Claire Mitchell's voice came from somewhere in the shadows behind him, calm and conversational, as if they were discussing the weather. Tyler spun around, his plasma blade ready, but he couldn't see her in the dimly lit corridor. "Don't feel bad about it," her voice continued, seeming to come from a different direction now. That hologram costs more than most people make in a lifetime. Military-grade projection technology with haptic feedback and thermal simulation. It even has a heartbeat that shows up on medical scanners. Tyler's enhanced senses swept the area, trying to locate the source of her voice, but it seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You've been watching me," he said, his own voice tight with the realization that his hunt had somehow gone wrong. "Tyler Brooks," Claire said, and hearing his real name made his blood run cold. Born on Razor Prime, 43 standard years ago. Graduate of the Killing Grounds Academy with the highest marks in your class. 97 successful contracts over the past 20 years, with a perfect success rate. Ship registration TK 7749. Currently docked in Bay 94 under the false identity of Marcus Webb. She paused, and Tyler could almost hear the smile in her voice. "Oh, and your contact with his job was Vincent Holloway, a broker who operates out of the shadow market. He's been selling information about human targets to various criminal organizations for the past year." Tyler felt his heart racing. She knew everything. Not just his name and background, but details that should have been impossible for her to discover. "How?" was all he managed to say. "Tyler, I've been a diplomat for 15 years. Do you know what the most important skill is in my profession? It's not negotiation or languages or cultural sensitivity. It's staying alive when everyone around you wants you dead." Claire's voice was coming from directly behind him now. Tyler spun around again, but there was still nothing there except shadows. "I noticed your surveillance about 6 hours after you arrived on the station. I've been tracking every move you've made since then. I know about the apartment you rented in Section C. I know you've been eating at the same cafe every morning at 0730. I even know you've been wearing the same jacket for 2 weeks because you thought it made you blend in better." Tyler began backing toward what he thought was his primary escape route, a maintenance corridor that led to the emergency lifts. But as he reached the entrance, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was a human male dressed as a maintenance worker, but Tyler's trained eyes immediately recognized the way he moved. "Military. Special Forces. Going somewhere?" the man asked politely. Tyler turned toward his secondary escape route, only to find another figure blocking that path as well. This one was a human female dressed as a tourist, complete with a camera and a friendly smile. But her stance and the way she held herself told Tyler everything he needed to know. Another soldier. "Let me explain something about humans." Claire's voice continued from the shadows. "We have a saying on Earth. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to hunt a killer. We don't work alone, Tyler. We never work alone." More figures began emerging from what Tyler had thought were empty corridors. Humans dressed as traders, station workers, even other diplomats. All of them moving with the same controlled precision. All of them positioning themselves to cut off every possible escape route. "You see, the thing about being hunted for millions of years on a deaf world is that you learn some important lessons," Claire continued. "The most important one is that the best defense against a predator isn't running away or hiding. It's making sure you're a better predator than they are." Tyler realized with growing horror that every single human on the station had probably known about his presence from the moment he arrived. They had all been playing their roles. The friendly traders, the helpful maintenance staff, the curious tourists, while actually conducting a counter-surveillance operation that made his own efforts look like amateur hour. "Now, Tyler, we can do this the easy way or the hard way," Claire said, finally stepping into view. She was holding what looked like a standard diplomatic data pad. But Tyler's experienced, I caught the subtle modifications that marked it as a weapon capable of considerable destruction. "The easy way is you answer some questions about who hired you and why. The hard way involves my friends here demonstrating some techniques they learned in very unpleasant places doing very unpleasant things to very unpleasant people." Tyler looked around at the circle of humans surrounding him, all of them wearing pleasant smiles that didn't reach their eyes. For the first time in his professional career, he realized he wasn't a hunter anymore. He was a prey, and he had walked directly into a trap set by predators who were far more skilled at this game than he had ever imagined possible. Tyler woke up in what was possibly the most comfortable prison cell he had ever seen. The room had soft lighting, a proper bed with clean sheets, and even a small table with what appeared to be real coffee steaming in a ceramic cup. For a moment, he wondered if the entire encounter on the observation deck had been some kind of nightmare. Then Ambassador Claire Mitchell walked through the door, carrying a datapad and wearing the same calm smile she'd had when his assassination attempt had fallen apart around him. "Good morning, Tyler," she said, settling into the chair across from his bed. "I hope you slept well. We're currently aboard the diplomatic vessel New Horizon, about 6 hours out from New Geneva Station. Coffee's fresh if you want some." Tyler sat up slowly, his enhanced reflexes automatically scanning the room for weapons or escape routes. There weren't any obvious ones, but something told him that Claire had known he would look and had probably planned for that too. "Why am I not dead?" he asked directly. Claire picked up her own cup of coffee and took a sip before answering. "Because sometimes a message is more important than killing the messenger. And you, Tyler Brooks, are about to help us deliver a very important message to some very dangerous people." She activated her datapad, and a holographic display showed what Tyler recognized as intelligence files, detailed dossiers on criminal organizations, assassination networks, and underworld contacts he knew by reputation. "Let me tell you a story," Claire continued. "About a year ago, human diplomatic personnel started getting targeted for assassination. At first, we thought it was just a normal hazard of the job. Diplomats make enemies, after all. But then we noticed a pattern. The contracts were all coming from the same underground networks, all following similar patterns. The holographic display shifted to show a timeline with 20 different assassination attempts marked in red. 20 professional killers accepted contracts to eliminate human targets over the past 12 months. Your colleagues, Tyler, the best of the best. Assassins who had never failed a job, never left a trace, never met a target they couldn't eliminate. Tyler studied the timeline, recognizing several names. Vincent Shaw, a void stalker who could phase through solid matter. Kelly Davis, a shapeshifter who could perfectly mimic any species. Andrew Wilson, a tech specialist who could hack any system in the galaxy. All of them were legends in the assassination trade. What happened to them? Tyler asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "They're all alive," Claire said, and Tyler felt his world shift again. "Every single one of them. They're all working for us now." She gestured to the display, which now showed current photos of the 20 assassins. They were all wearing what appeared to be standard human diplomatic clothing, and they all had the same calm, satisfied expression that Tyler had seen on Claire's face. "You see, Tyler, we realized something important when these assassination attempts started. Every killer who came after us was a window into the criminal organizations that hired them. Every contract was a trail that led back to the people who wanted humans dead. And every failed assassination attempt was an opportunity to flip a valuable intelligence asset." The display showed a complex web of connections, criminal networks, illegal weapons dealers, slave traders, and corrupt officials. All of it mapped out in stunning detail. Vincent Shaw gave us the complete membership roster of the Ghost Hand Syndicate. Kelly Davis provided us with the locations of 17 illegal weapons manufacturing facilities. Andrew Wilson handed us the encryption keys to the entire black market communication network. Claire leaned forward, her expression becoming more serious. "Tyler, in the past year, using intelligence gathered from failed assassination attempts on human targets, we've shut down 43 criminal organizations, rescued over 2,000 slaves, and seized enough illegal weapons to outfit a small army." Tyler stared at the data, his mind racing. "You've been using us. All of us." "We've been defending ourselves," Claire corrected. "The assassination attempts were real, Tyler. The people who hired you really do want us dead. But we decided that instead of just surviving, we'd turn their attacks into the most successful counterintelligence operation in galactic history." She stood up and walked to the small viewport, looking out at the stars. "Humans have a concept called turning the other cheek, Tyler. It means responding to violence with peace, to hatred with understanding. It's a beautiful philosophy." She turned back to face him, and Tyler saw something in her eyes that made his enhanced survival instincts scream warnings. "But we also have another concept called mutually assured destruction. It means that if you try to hurt us, we'll hurt you back so badly that no one will ever want to try it again. Claire returned to her chair and pulled out what looked like a standard execution warrant. Tyler's name was printed at the top in official diplomatic script. So here's your choice, Tyler. Option 1. I sign this warrant. You're executed for attempted assassination of a diplomatic representative, and we stuff your body out an airlock. Clean, simple, legal under 17 different galactic treaties. She set the warrant aside and pulled out a second document. Option 2. You help us send a message to every criminal organization in the galaxy. You go back to the shadow market, to your contacts, to everyone who knows your reputation, and you tell them exactly what happened here. Tyler looked at the second document. It was a contract employment with the Human Diplomatic Corps as a security consultant. You tell them that humans aren't prey to be hunted. Claire continued. You tell them that we're apex predators who have turned assassination into a contact sport, and we're very, very good at it. You tell them that anyone who comes after us isn't just risking failure. They're volunteering to become our newest intelligence asset. She smiled, and Tyler realized it was the most terrifying expression he had ever seen. Within 3 weeks of your return to the shadow market, word had spread throughout the galactic underworld. No more contracts on humans. Not ever. We're officially classified as more dangerous than profitable. Tyler looked at the employment contract again. The salary was generous. The benefits package was excellent. And there was a very clear implication that refusing wasn't really an option. Welcome to the team, Tyler, Claire said. Your first assignment is hunting down the people who put out the contract on my life. I think you're going to find the work very rewarding. As Tyler signed the contract, he realized that he had just become part of something much larger and more dangerous than any assassination network he had ever known. The humans hadn't just won this round. They had changed the entire game.